Matters, where you will always get the undisputed truth. I'm your host, Jerry Brown, and we're going to be talking about a few things today. Our main topic today is to introduce you to the South Area Civic League. It's a nonprofit civic organization headquartered out on Chicago's South Side that's doing a lot of things. We're going to talk about that, introduce you to it, and let you know all what's going on. But before we get to that, there's a couple of things that's really been bugging me on my mind, and I'd like to discuss them with you. Take a moment and kind of clear my mind, I guess you can say. A couple of weeks ago on this show, we presented to you a situation that's going on with the Illinois International Port Authority and the General Assembly of Illinois. That Port Authority was asking the state of Illinois to forgive a $15 million loan, which in today's terms, dollars and cents wise, it's about $50 million. And what we were asking, a group called the Lake Calumet Vision Committee, it's a group of about 30 community organizations located out on the south and southeast sides. What we were asking was for a portion of the land out on the Lake Calumet, out on the Lake Calumet side, out on the southeast side around Lake Calumet. We're asking for about roughly 300 acres of land to be set aside for public access. At one time, for at least 100 years, that area that we were asking to be turned over for public access was used for recreation, such as hunting, fishing, and just plain recreation, camping, things of that nature. The Port Authority took a very stern position in telling us no. They decided that what their plans were more important. Their plans have absolutely nothing to do with the community that is affected by the decisions that they make out there. And they approached the General Assembly and asked them for a loan forgiveness without giving anything to the public. Well, bottom line, fast forward. Well, this Tuesday, against the wishes of these 30 organizations and without any consideration to the public, the Illinois General Assembly passed that bill which forgave that debt to the Illinois Port Authority. Now, mind you, this was on Tuesday. Last Friday, the Illinois State Senate passed what they call a balanced budget. It included quite a few things that the governor wanted. I think just about everything the governor wanted, with the exception of term limits, quite a few cuts, but it also included revenue, which is just a disguise for taxes. So in other words, the Illinois State Senate is telling the taxpayers of Illinois that you're going to have to dig into your pockets, all right, to help balance the budget of the state of Illinois, all while they're telling the citizens, the taxpayers, that we're going to take this $15 million that you own and just throw it off into the wind. We're going to let these people just say, okay, we're not going to pay you back. And I don't know, I got so upset about this that I really couldn't talk about it for a while, because, it's just the ultimate insult. It's and the bad thing about it, and I really hate to take things down racial lines, but it's almost impossible not to do that, especially here in Chicago and Illinois. But it was Black politicians doing this to Black people in a Black community for people who are not Black. Right, for giving a loan so development can be done for facilities that Black people don't use. There are some Black people that golf, but for the most part, Black people don't golf. Surely they don't golf on the South Side. And if you go out to that harbor, to the existing golf courses out there at the on the Port Authority's land, the majority of the people that use that golf course out there are not Black. As a matter of fact, most of them come in on helicopters at a heliport that we paid for, that's on the backside, and we don't even see them coming in and going out. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, the gall and the nerve for the director of that Port Authority, the board of that Port Authority, to just tell taxpayers, we took your money, we're not going to give it back. And the reason we're not going to give it back is because we're going to go borrow some more money. I'm wondering if they're planning on borrowing more money from the state of Illinois. And given the attitude of the General Assembly, it's very well damn possible that that's where they're expecting to get the money. We've talked with a couple of members of the General Assembly about this. They gave us some surface concern, But the bottom line is, and what's become so apparent is that they were just as much in favor of forgiving this debt as the Port Authority was. I'm really disgusted with Senator Dottie Trotter, Representative Will Davis, and all the others. It's just unbelievable that we continue to send people like this to these legislative bodies to represent us. And what they do is they take our vote, they go to these bodies, and they forget that we even exist. Come election time, they come around glad-handing us and slapping us on the back and smiling us and the old chicken in the pot kind of thing. And it's about time that we do something about this. It's about time we stand up. I was scheduled to go to Springfield last week with a group that were going to testify to a Senate committee about this bill before they eventually passed it. I didn't make it, but I was told by the group, and one my guest here was there, and she might even mention on it, that Representative Will Davis, and I'm calling him by name because you people really need to know this. Representative Will Davis told this group that it is not the responsibility of the elected officials in the General Assembly to make the public aware of what bills are coming before them and what bills are going to be voted on. He said it is not their responsibility to let us know that. If it's not their responsibility, then whose is it? Why are we sending you to represent us? It's just unbelievable. It really is. And we have to take some responsibility in this as well. We're scared to step outside of our comfort zone. It seems that Black people have this emotional connection to the Democratic Party. Now, I'm not advocating the Republican Party. I'm not advocating any party, but it seems that we can't step outside of our comfort zone and see that it is the Democrats here in Chicago and here in Illinois that is actually doing damage to us. Not one elected official in the city of Chicago is a Republican. And look at the conditions that Black people are sitting in. Not one. Last week, we had 6 Black aldermen stand up and endorse a candidate that doesn't exist. What sense does that make? And the candidate that they're hoping announces that he runs has been more damaging in 1.5 terms to Black people than Daley was in 5. It's unbelievable. And they stood there and did this in our face, telling us this is the best thing because he gave 2 Black people 2 jobs. I don't know where this is going to go, unless we stand up and take responsibility for ourselves, unless we make the effort to find out what's going on, unless we start telling these people that we give our votes to, that they work for us. They are not sent there to make decisions on their own. Their job is to represent. In other words, they are to be our voice, not their voice coming back and we follow what they say. We got this thing twisted and we accept that because one little person might get a little something over here, another little person. And so, oh yeah, well, he's the greatest thing since God sliced cheese. No, man, it's just got to change. We got to start voting, people. We must start voting. This is crazy. We go further and further and further going, we're going further and further backwards. 1960s was a time of outrage and upheaval, and we saw a lot of change come about. Sometimes I wonder if the outcome of all that took place, the civil rights legislation and integration, sometimes I wonder if that was actually a detriment to us. Because I see what's happened. We've come to depend on the government, to take care of us. That's not what it is. What the government is going to do for us. The thing is, what are you going to do for yourself? What are you going to do for yourself? We got to get out of that. We got to get out of that kind of thinking, people. We really got to get out of that kind of thinking. Surely there are some things that they're supposed to step in and give us assistance in, but they are not supposed to be our bread and butter. And as long as we have that attitude, these people that we send down there who have ulterior motives when they run for office are going to get a few little pennies, a few little crumbs and throw them our way, and we'll be happy and we won't vote. Or if we vote, we'll vote them back in, which is in effect a non-vote. it's really sad. It's really sad. I asked a question today on social media. Who's at fault because Illinois doesn't have a budget? And I looked at all the answers. There are some people who said they just can't get their heads out of the sand. You know, they think Bruce Rauner. Now don't get me wrong. I am not a fan of Bruce Rauner. I'm not waving the flag for Bruce Rauner. Bruce Rauner has had, he said some pretty bad things. He's had some plans that I don't totally agree with. But this balanced budget that I talked about earlier, which had a lot of things in it that he wanted, he said that he would be willing to sign a budget like that. It wasn't even presented to him. Got to the House of Representatives, Mr. Madigan didn't even give it to him. Didn't even give it to him. Didn't even give it to him. Now, how can you blame the governor for that? You can't. That's not the governor's fault that we don't have a budget now. It's not. I don't care who you are or what you think. It's not his fault. It's very possible because he said so. And you know, he said some things and gone back on them, as do most politicians. But there are items in that budget that the Senate passed on last Friday that he wanted that were not in other budgets that were put before the governor before. I think it was everything except for the term limits, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Madigan refused to give it to him. So now we still don't have a budget, going into the third year without a budget. No other state has ever gone this long without a budget, but they're spending money. We have $14.1 billion in unpaid bills. $14.1 billion in unpaid bills in this state. Social services are being cut. You know, schools are underfunded. State universities are grossly underfunded. Some on the brink of closure. I don't know. I really don't know. I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. Moving on. My guest today is Minister Sylvia Jones. Ms. Jones is one of the founding members of the South Area Civic League. How you doing, Sylvia?
Good afternoon, Jerry. How are you?
I've been better. I've been better. South Area Civic League. What is it? When did it start?
The South Area Civic League, well, first of all, giving honor to God, who's the head of my life. The South Area Civic League was incorporated in 2013. It was the brainchild of a young man that lived at that time lived in Roseland, Mr. Robert Douglas. And he was kind of upset about the fact that when Congressman Jesse Jackson went to jail, that we had no representation.
Okay.
In other words, he was saying taxation without representation.
Okay.
So he brought together a group of us, and we sat down at the table. We came up with a name, and here we are, the South Area Civic League. Our mission and what we're doing is strictly policy, the changing of policy and creating of policy where it deals with the bread and butter issues. Our mission, Jerry, is to power the people through civic education and engagement, to provide the community with a vehicle through which information can be shared, and to increase community awareness by involving all segments of the South region of Chicago in the planning and implementation. And that goes back to what you just spoke of, which was the Port District and giving us that 300 acres for open space and recreational use.
Wow. South Area. What exactly is the South Area?
Well, our boundaries are Jerry, from Roosevelt Road on the north to the city limits on the south, to Cicero on the west, and to the lake on the east.
Okay, so that encompasses almost half of the city.
Almost half of the city.
Okay,
yes.
Heavily populated by African Americans.
African Americans.
But there are other races and ethnic groups in those areas.
Right.
Has the group South Area typically reached out to those groups?
Well, some of them have, and I know that you have reached out to a few. I have about 14, 15 organizations that I'm constantly in tow with. Yes.
Yeah, by the way, I am a member of the South Area Civic League, by the way.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Should I mention who?
Yeah. Why don't you tell us who's all involved?
Jerry Brown is our acting president, and we have Wanda Wright, who is the director of community civic engagement and community relations for Chicago State University. We have Robert Douglas, who is our founder. And we also have myself, who is the acting secretary, and we had John Paul Jones, who is an advisor to us, who is the president of Sustainable Inglewood.
Yeah. Is that all?
That's it. That's well, we have also, I'm sorry, Linda Hudson, Patrick Brutus, Marcel Bright, Maria Barlow, and I can't remember. Help me out, Jerry.
Attorney Luke Townsend.
And Terry Luke Townsend.
Right.
Yes.
Gotta have that legal stuff in order.
Right. Yeah.
I had Sylvia come on to help me introduce this group because we feel that one of the reasons that Black people are in the situation that they are is because, number one, we don't understand what policy is. Number two, we are not civically educated. We're not politically astute. One of the main things that this group is going to be doing is political and civic education classes. I mean, we have a lot of people who will pick up the phone and call the congressman's office because the curb outside and in front of their house is broken. People just don't know who's responsible for what. And we go to the polls and we pull levers because we are familiar with the name and not because we understand what needs to be done and who's trying to do it. Okay. What are some of the things that the Civic League has done, or planning to do?
One of the things that we did to as a breakout, and when we started the group, was we had a forum that we did in January 26th of 2013. And that forum is where we had a panel of experts to come in and talk about the state of affairs as it relates to our community, where there was financial, housing. We had Phil Jackson, who did the housing part. We had former Senator Roland Burris, your brother, what was your brother's name? Lloyd Brown. Yeah, and Tom Tressler, who came in and talked as well. And
I think what we did was, I think the group had identified 9 the most serious issues that the Black community were facing, and we invited experts in each one of those areas, and they came in and gave us their take on those issues, and gave us some solutions as far as solving them, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yes. And then the second forum that we had was right after President Obama released signed Obamacare into effect. And we had a forum where we brought in several of the different health agencies to sign up people for health care.
Okay. What have you got planned for the future?
Well, what we're doing now is we're looking for people to come in and sign up with us, and we're going to do voter registration. We also are going to just start doing mentoring education for our young people. We also talked about we're going to have a forum on June 17th. If you want me to talk about that, Jerry.
Sure.
And that forum is going to be on tips, taxes, and tricks, Rahm's magic hat. And Tom Tressler is going to come out and talk about tips and his book, which is called Chicago is Not Broke. And we're inviting everyone to come out, and that's going to be on a Saturday, June 17th, 2017 at 10 a.m. at Chicago State University in the 4th floor library.
Okay, real good. The name is South Area Civic League. There is a distinction between what is civic and what is political. Can you kind of go over that with us?
Well, to me, and in my opinion, I know Webster has a different take on it, but
This
as
is America, you know,
right,
we change definitions as we see fit.
as we see fit. I think the civic part of it. Well, let's get to the political part of it. The political part of it is just what you explained. We put these representatives in. They're not representing us. They don't understand that they're the employees and we're the employer. There's really no education. I can remember back when I was a young Democrat, and my leaders or my alderman would put me in a position, and he would not just leave me there. He would educate and take my hand and walk me through that position until I can handle it on my own. Now we don't have those kinds of things going on with our politicians. They talk a good game. Well, we got to get the young people involved and we got to do this. But when they die out, we look around, you don't have anybody to take their place. What we're doing civically, we're going to try to change all of that. We will change all of that. I know with your leadership, Jerry, we're going to change all of that. We're going to bring them in. We're going to sit down. We're going to educate them. We're going to listen to them. We're going to tell them why they must be doing this, why they're going to vote, because we have a large population out there of young people that are not voting. And we need to find out why they're not voting.
Not just young people.
Well, you know, you got a few of us, yeah.
It's not just young
but
people.
I'm more geared toward the young people because we're going to soon be extinct.
Well, I don't know how extinct we're going to be, but we're not going to be around.
We're not going to be around. So those are some of the things we're going to do: the training, the education, explain to them why they need to vote, and explain to them what happens when you don't.
And I guess the civic thing is being concerned about the development of an area, the education of our kids.
Right.
Although those things come down and they fall up under a political banner, but the planning of these things come out of a civic mindset.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Now, you talked about this event that's on the 17th of June. Mr. Tresser has been giving, that particular presentation that he's giving is becoming very popular. Our event will actually be the 54th time he's given this. People are requesting this all around Chicago. The book is very popular. I don't know exactly what it's done as far as sales, but I know the book is very popular. And it pretty much outlines the monies that are coming into the city,
right,
and where it's going. And he talks about that there are different ways for the city to finance the things that they are doing. And there are a lot of things that are being financed that's really not the responsibility of the city of Chicago. And I think about this, and it's kind of difficult for us to get information on this. Our mayor talks about all of the construction that's going on and how grateful we should be about all the construction that's taking place downtown Chicago. Right now, there are 44 cranes operating, building skyscrapers in what's considered the Loop of Chicago. What's normal, what's average during construction season is somewhere between 20 and 25. Each crane that you see represents about 1,000 people working. So if there are 44 cranes down there, that's 44,000 construction jobs right there in the downtown Chicago. 44,000 construction jobs right in the Loop of Chicago.
Right.
Black unemployment is the highest in the nation right here, Chicago and Illinois.
44.1% or something like that.
Highest in the nation.
Yeah.
44,000 construction jobs in the Loop alone. There's a building boom going on in Hyde Park.
Hotels, retail.
Highest unemployment. Why do you suppose that is, Sylvia?
Well, let's go back to, I attended a political forum back when the aldermanic races, special elections were going on. And this one particular alderman, they were talking about each alderman get a $1.3 million menu money. And this one particular alderman from Hyde Park, and I won't mention any name, gave all her money back to the city of Chicago. And no one knows where that money went. Now, I think what's happening is because—
Is that the fourth ward?
Yes.
Sophia King?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think what's happening—
did she give a reason for that?
No, she denied it.
Okay. She denied that she did it?
Yeah, she denied that she did it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the reason why we're not getting our just due is because of the representation that we don't have. We don't have representation on the South Side. We have elected officials, but they're not representing us.
Okay. Now, let's hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Now, we're talking about construction going on.
Okay.
This is not public construction. These are private construction sites. Okay. And the government doesn't have control over that. No, they don't have control over that. No, they don't. So I think the point I'm trying to get to, and not only as far as going to work, but in living our lives, we have to prepare ourselves. We're not prepared. That's one of the reasons that we're in the situation that we're in. We're not preparing ourselves to do anything. We're sitting back, and we have this entitlement mentality. As Black people really have an entitlement. They owe us something, or they got to give me something because they have been giving me something. One of the arguments that conservatives make, and it's kind of hard to argue against it, is that welfare, link cards, Section 8, food stamps, all kill motivation.
Right.
And it's kind of hard to argue that, although there are people who need it, but it has become a generational thing. It's almost like we pass that down to our young, and the same way with employment. I think about. I spent 32 years in construction myself. The days of going to the gate and saying, "Hey, can I get hired?" That's over. There's no more of that. Even for construction jobs, there has to be a resume. There has to be a body of work. In Chicago, there has to be union affiliation. And in order to have that, there has to be some kind of preparation to get it.
And then I agree with you, but going back to what you're saying, these are private jobs. Yes, they are private jobs. However, they still have to deal with the unions. And when they deal with the unions, it's political. And you have certain aldermen that have these relationships with these unions, and these jobs are given, but they're not looking. The jobs that the workers out there don't look like us.
Well, that's true.
Right.
That's true.
So if it's not coming in the front door, they're coming in the back door, and by them being private, it doesn't make any difference. It's still political. It is still political, however you look at it. And we have been frozen out of the unions. They don't even talk to us anymore. Let's go back to the museum, Lucas Museum situation.
Okay.
Where we had the mayor, mayor was saying that the monies, the taxpayers would not have to come up with any monies, but yet you had a $700 and something million project, and the owners is going to put in so many million. So where's that money coming from?
I don't know.
Where's that money? Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Where's the jobs? Where are the jobs coming from? When I go into a meeting and I'm seeing the heads of banks, and I'm seeing at the table the head of the union, and then you have the head of the law firms sitting at the table trying to make deals with us and tell us that, oh yeah, we're going to give you jobs and we're going to do this. No. They know how to get to us.
Well, I guess what I was leading up to is this, and one of the things that I want the South Area Civic League to be actively involved in is that we don't prepare ourselves.
Right.
Sure enough, the unions don't want us. I was a member of IBEW Local 134 for 32 years.
Right.
Okay. And I know when I began my apprenticeship there back in the 70s, I was like a fly in a pan of milk, and there was a lot of effort to make sure that I was the only fly, and I saw it happen. But here's the thing. Things have progressed slightly, and some of us do break in. Some of us do get those jobs, and we do make those good salaries. And
but that's who they
hold
are.
on, let me finish. And what we don't do is invest in ourselves, and we don't invest in our community. See, that's the civic angle. We don't invest in our communities. And by that, I mean, we'll get that $40 an hour job, and we'll go out and we'll buy that Cadillac or that Mercedes. Hold on, let me finish. And we riding around looking pretty, tell them, come on, man, come on, ride with me. Now, we complain a lot. And you know, and this really, really, really gets me. We complain about saying Mexicans are taking our jobs, but you know what they do? And I've watched it.
They work.
They get those $40 an hour jobs. They don't buy a Mercedes.
No.
They buy a dump truck. Then they can go out and bid on a contract.
Right.
And guess what? They put 5 or 6 other Mexicans to work. We get mad about that.
Right.
That's our fault.
Right.
That's our fault. That's why they're working and we're not.
We're not.
That's why they are accepted by the union and we're not. We don't have an industrial mentality. You know, we don't have that. We don't have that. And this is one of the things that we are going to be actively involved in trying to change, that mentality. You know, on a piece of property out in West Pullman, down the street from me, there's a 4-flat building. I know the gentleman that owns it. He's got it rented out. All 4 of the tenants are paying rent, $1,200 a month in West Pullman, and every one of them have a late model, high-end luxury car that they park on the street every night. 2 of them are city workers. See, we have to stop that. See, when people see that,
right,
they treat us that way. Carter G. Woodson wrote a book back in the 1930s, right here in Chicago, you know, Miseducation of the Negro. And you know what he said? He said, as long as we accept and expect that our needs be met from the outside, we will be treated like sojourners in our own land.
Right.
And what's happening here in Chicago? This is why they passed that bill and didn't give us no land for recreation. This is why they passed the budget and told us to dig into our pockets. Pay for what they want over there. We have to change our thinking. You know, we don't have, you know, our problem is the way we think, the way we view things. And a lot of it is because we're not aware.
Right.
You know, it's not aware. So.
And we're not aware, and they're not being educated to the point, to the fact. And another thing, I want to go back to, you're saying that we don't prepare ourselves. I can agree with that, but not in its totality, because when you train, you have to be trained to work on some of these jobs, like laying the tracks on the railroads, or laying the tracks on CTA, or buildings. When they took Washburn, not Washburn, but what's the school?
Washburn.
Was it Washburn?
Washburn.
Out of the city.
Right.
Took them out of the city and put a school all the way out in the suburbs where no one can get to it. You know, if they don't have a job, they couldn't get to transportation.
Well, the unions built the schools after that. Yeah, the city of Chicago stopped vocational education.
Right.
And the union said they built their own training centers.
Right.
And those weren't available to us anyway. You had to be a part of the apprenticeship programs to get into them. And the only way to get into the apprenticeship programs is through application or sponsorship. And if we're not there to sponsor anybody, we don't get in.
Right. So what do? We build our own. It goes back to what you just said. We have to build our own and not look on the outside to help us go out on the outside.
Now, there is going to take some effort. I mean, there's going to have to be some assistance from government in order for us to build our own. And this is why it's time. There you go.
Policy. And
in order for the proper policies to be put in place, it's time to do a complete turning of the political soil.
A paradigm shift.
Well, not a paradigm shift, a complete turning of the political soil. In other words, I'm talking about these people who sit in office, not one African American in the city council, not one African American in the General Assembly deserves to be reelected.
Right.
Not one of them.
Not one.
Not one. They are guilty either by direct involvement in the misrepresentation of us, or the or all the things that have been desperate, or they're guilty by direct involvement, or they're guilty by just by being silent.
Right.
Just by being silent, knowing that it's going on. If I know it goes on, and I'm not a member of those legislative bodies, then they got to know. And if they don't know, they got no business being there anyway.
Right. Exactly. So we have, meaning the South Area Civic League have a large job to do, and it's going to take a lot of planning. And it's just by the grace of God that we have the kind of people at that board, on that board, with these different skill sets. And it probably wouldn't take us that long to put things together, but to put them in place and to move the political the politicians that we have in office right now, to move them out and to bring in new leadership, new young leadership.
But see, that's good to say, but you have to have a plan to do that. You know, it's funny thing, the other night at our meeting, Patrick Brutus said something that was, he's a funny guy. Patrick Brutus said something. He says that we have to start bringing up conservative issues or issues as the conservatives do, and start thinking. And it's so ironic, that the very next day, the article ran in the Tribune that Chris Kennedy, candidate for governor, was doing exactly that.
Okay.
This is what people are responding to. And you know, it's not so much that, you know, and we got to get away from the media's definition of these tags that they put on people. If you think about it, Black people out of slavery were the most conservative people this country ever had.
Right.
Because we had to lease and had to conserve all that we had. You know, we wanted to hold on and maintain certain things. We had high moral values.
Right.
All of that has gone away.
And we help one another.
High moral values includes all of that.
Yeah.
You know, and he says, and we got to get back to that. You know, the higher taxes are hurting who? The taxes that they're passing now are regressive.
Right.
Because they hurt us more than they hurt anybody. 7 cents for a bag. Paying double for garbage. Garbage been collected for 100 years out of the taxes that we pay for our real estate. And now all of a sudden we got to pay extra. That's double. And you know, and they didn't
tax the taxes.
Yeah, and that hurts us more than anybody. So the policies that this city have, and that's one thing that Tom Tresser is going to be talking about. He's going to be talking about where the money is, but he's going to be talking about the policies that the city has and how it affects us and how we can change these things. You know, I would opt to say, you know, just on my limited understanding of taxation here in the city of Chicago, I would opt to say that there has not been a need for a tax increase here in this city since the year 2000, based on what has been spent. And, you know, it's just
in lawsuits alone.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So that's one of the things that we're going to undertake. We're going to undertake educating, giving people a reason to start voting. Now, if you come to this thing come to this event on June 17th, and you sit down and you hear this man explains that they've taken your money and they've given it to somebody else, just like the state legislature did, giving it to somebody else, and then they're telling you to dig into your pocket and so we can give them some more, I would opt to say that those 44 cranes downtown, they got a lot of city money. I bet there's TIF money and all of that.
Course.
I'm sure there is, you know.
Course.
I didn't want to go into that then, but I'm pretty sure. But if you come to that thing and you get educated to the fact that these people are just misusing you, treating you like, as we say on the street, or like treating you like a stepchild, and if you don't have a reason to go out and vote after that, then we're going to do some other things. We're going to continue to educate. And then we're going to be coming out, and this is going to be probably the hardest thing that we're going to do, and we're going to need as much help as we possibly can. We're going to be having a membership drive beginning on the 17th of June. And we're going to be asking people to come help us, because we're going to actually have to go door to door. Old time campaigning. And this is not going to be a real campaigning, but we're going to be knocking on doors, because the voter turnout is so low, and we're going to be asking people if they voted. And if they did not vote, we're going to be asking them, what would make you vote? In other words, I will vote if.
Right.
And we're going to ask them to fill in that blank, because, you know, the time is now. You know,
Right.
we don't need leaders. We need servants.
Servants.
Everybody
Servants.
wants to be a leader. You know,
Right.
we got everybody wants to be a leader. You know, you don't know how to lead until you serve.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know any of these people who hold public office that have ever served us in any way, form, or fashion. Not a
Never
one.
mind. When I moved over in Chatham in 2013, I started organizing and I took my alderman door to door. And I was surprised about the things that I was hearing. And the things that I was hearing was coming from people who had been there 30 and 40 years that was telling me no politician has ever knocked on my door.
Right.
I don't even know who my alderman is.
Right.
I never knew who my state representative was.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So you're right. You got to go by like Jehovah's Witness, 2 by 2. Knock on
I'm not
door.
going to touch that. I'm not going to touch that.
Go door by door.
Yeah.
They have the right method. I'm sorry. They have the right method. Door by door and put the message out.
Well, the thing is that government has to be responsive to the people.
Right.
And it is not today. And that's why people don't, well, you know, you get the attitude, well, they're going to do what they're going to do anyway. Well, not necessarily.
No, not necessarily.
You know, I talk about running campaigns, and I'm involved with several campaigns right now. And you hear this thing about, you got to have money, you got to have money. That's not necessarily true. You know, the reason a person needs a lot of money to run a campaign is because they don't have a message.
Right.
That money is spent on media when they throw out a slogan, signage, billboards, all of these distractions. Nothing telling you about the problems that exist or how they're going to change what is, because all elections are about change.
And
all of them.
I agree with you, Jerry, because I always go back to when Jane Byrne ran, when Harold Washington ran, and she spent that $10 million and lost the election.
Yeah, exactly. You do not have to have, you know, I hear these people and I talk about this on social media. Oh, no, you got to have money. No, that's not true.
That's not true.
That's true. You got to know what the people want. If you know what the people want, and you're not going to know that until you get out there. And
that message has to resonate.
Throw some signs out on the wall someplace and you know, some little jazzy radio ads and, you know, flashy TV, you know, 30-second sound bits and stuff, you know, and we get what did Malcolm say? Hoodwinked, bamboozled, and led astray. That's just what happens. And that's so nice. Well, I'm gonna vote for him because that's who's in office. That is the dumbest thing. You know what? And you know, and I hope I'm stepping on some toes. I really do. I hope I'm making some people real upset with some of the things that I'm saying, because I know I'm talking about a lot of people that look like me. Right. I know I'm talking about a lot of people that's in my age bracket, because that's what you do. But it's time to stop, because not only are you hurting yourselves, you're hurting your posterity. You're hurting the kids. But this is why our kids are in the state that they're in. It's because we have supported a system that has been, you know, it's just now coming. You know, the one thing that Rich Daley did, and I'm not saying that I liked it, but the one thing that Rich Daley did, he hid the damage that he was doing to us. This man we got now, he don't hide it. He don't care. He don't care. He just does it right in our face. So what? You know, he came into office cussing out that black woman, Karen Jennings, in public, and never apologized.
And called her the B word.
Never apologized. And we got these clowns down there, these 6 clowns, talking about, oh, Mr. Mayor, we want you to run again.
And the same ones that they knew that he was hiding the fact of those 16 shots.
I don't know, Sylvia. You know, this is we've taken on a heck of a role here.
Well, I'm excited about it.
The 7 of us, we really have.
Right.
Myself, you, Wanda, right? Linda Hudson, Marcel,
Magnificent
right?
7.
Yeah. Well, that's one way to put it.
Magnificent 7.
And I might add that just recently, Ms. Rhea Ray Harris has joined us.
Right. Yeah.
She has joined us. You know, it's an illustrious group, as she calls us. It's a group of some fine-tuned minds, some people who are selfless, you know, and have a serious concern about what's going on. And you know, I want to say I'm excited about it, but I know this is going to be You know, as old as I am, it's just going to drain a lot of energy, but it's worth it.
You're not as old
I
as
have
me,
children. You know, I have children. I have grandchildren, and the Bible tells us that a man who doesn't leave anything for his, for his family is, he's less than a man.
And just get it back to the child part. And I've always been an activist for over 40 years in organizing. I used to try to get my daughter to do the same thing. And it wasn't until she bought a piece of property.
Okay.
Now she's called the mayor of her block.
There you go.
Now she's the president of a park advisory council.
There you go.
Now she's an organizer. You know, she's invested.
Yeah.
And
see, that's what civics is all about. That's what civics is. You know, civic engagement is gone. It's lost. We don't know who lives next door to us. We no longer have block clubs. We don't have community media. You know what? We belong to organizations like the AARP that doesn't have meetings. They got millions of members, and we don't know one of them. And we have, but they're a strong lobby. They're a strong lobby.
And we have some people that stay in our area that work for AARP.
Yeah,
we don't. But
I'm just using them as an example.
I'm
just using them as an example.
But we don't
there are a lot of
organizations.
We don't have the block club parties and stuff like that. We don't do that. We don't come out and have events or just take time to know the people that we live around, or find out something about them, find out what's going on with them. And a devilish mind takes advantage of that.
I know when I moved on my block, the people knew I were coming, and I didn't know that.
Okay.
I didn't know it till I moved there.
Okay.
And a couple of months, it took us about 7 months to really close on the property. And I went across the street to Mr. Flower's house, and Mr. Flower was blind. He was blind.
Okay.
Knocked on the door, and I was giving him an application for something. He said, "Miss Jones." I said, "Yes." "It took you a long time to get here." He knew I was coming.
Okay.
My block knew I was coming. And that's what we had to get back to. And it's not that they were being nosy. If you walk down my block and you got one blue shoe on and one black shoe, the phone is going to ring.
Okay.
Miss Jones, there's somebody walking down the street with one shoe and one black shoe, one blue shoe and one black shoe. He might be crazy.
Yeah.
I had a company out digging up my yard the other day. And I told them, I said, now it's about 5 or 6 people watching you out here.
Okay.
You might not can see them, but they're watching you. Next block is the same thing. And that's what we have to get back to, that camaraderie, and not coming out of your house and not knowing who your neighbor is until something happened to you.
But we have to have a reason to do that.
Right.
We have to have a reason to do that.
Right.
And if our current condition as a people isn't a reason to do that, I don't know what is.
Well, my reason was I want to know who lives around me.
Well, I'm talking about people. Okay, I understand. I keep bumping this mic, but I understand that. But what I'm saying, and people in general, black people in general, all over Chicago, if the current condition of our teens, of our elderly, if those, and the lack of concern, not just from government, but from the neighbors, isn't reason for us to start getting out and knowing who lives next door. My uncle who lived in North Lawndale passed a couple of years ago. And we didn't go over to see him as much, but he was dead in his home 3 days before anybody knew it.
Yeah.
3 days in his home.
No camaraderie, no cohesiveness,
no civic engagement. That's what it is. It's civic engagement. And civic engagement is simply leaning on the fence, talking to your neighbor.
Right. And if you want to call me nosy, that's what I am. I'm nosy.
Well,
but I want to know
we don't even want to put that out there. We don't even want that idea to be in people's mind. It's not about being nosy. It's about being safe. It's about being helpful. It's about being concerned. It's not being nosy. We don't even want people to think that that's what it is. So, and given the situation with us today, we have to sometimes not say things, because when we say things, it plants a seed, and that seed begins to grow, and it's a seed of a weed instead of a seed of the wheat, So we have to be careful about what we say. Okay. Well, we're getting close to close to end. I'm wondering if there's something else that you'd like to say. Maybe mention a event again.
Well, yes, and we want to mention the event is called the South Area. We're the South Area Civic League, and we're holding a forum where Tom Tresser is going to be our guest host. He wrote a book on Chicago is Not Broke, and the name of our forum is called Taxes, Tips, Taxes, and Tricks, Rom's Magic Hat. Come and learn the true story of the city of Chicago's financial secrets. And that's going to be Saturday, June 17th, 2017 at 10 a.m. at Chicago State University.
Fourth floor, the academic library. Right, fourth floor. All right. Well, thank you for coming out and spending some time with us, Sylvia.
I hope you invite me back again.
I hope I will too. I'm just joking. You're always
we do this
welcome
all the
here.
time.
All right. Well, this closes another segment of Policy Matters. We thank you for listening. We'll be back again with the undisputed truth. Thanks so much.
Remember, policy matters.